There's really big camaraderie with a big community where just about everyone in there is also an animator or also makes games.
How do you trust people as you expand in a collaborative way to execute this vision that the three of you had?
Meanwhile, you are an incredibly accomplished artist. Is it weird to not be able to flex that?
Success in art is when you make a bunch of stupid shit while you wait for people to like your real shit, and then you find out that your real shit is your stupid shit.
Given all the offensive stuff and some of the reactions to that and some of the past things, why haven't you been canceled? It's been too much happiness, and I think we need some cyanide.
Exactly.
Oh,
Well said.
there you go.
I agree.
Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of make something mean something. That's what we do here. I am Kevin Lieber. With me, as always, is Matthew Tabor, who is going to spread the cheese about our guest. Is that a phrase? I don't think that's a phrase, but it sounded good in my head.
It is now.
Spread the cheese.
It is now. And thank you. My mother will be happy that you called me Matthew. Two people use my full name. You know, and it's Kevin and my mom, so both of my parent figures. We have. I tried to keep myself from laughing, but I lost it when you did. Yeah, we're in the Discord now, live with the Tots and the Dumpster Crew and the Infantry and the Baby Gang, and also Kris Wilson. Kris Wilson started with stick figure doodles to pass the time during a bout of strep throat 15 years ago, and it seems to have worked out to some degree. Since then, he's grown the webcomic Cyanide and Happiness, along with a few partners, into an absolute multimedia juggernaut. Their card game Joking Hazard, which I'm sure a lot of you have played, that raised $3.2 million on Kickstarter. Another home party game, Trial by Trolley, raised $3.5 million. Freakpocalypse is their video game, and that's coming out on Nintendo Switch. And there's the incredibly popular webcomics. That's how I'm sure a lot of us were introduced to Cyanide and Happiness. And the animated YouTube channel that has over 10 million subscribers. We're using million a lot, and there's a reason for it. But in an era where personality is just, it seems to drive everything. It really is king. Kris has a stick figure avatar on Twitter, and his Instagram is crudely drawn offensive comics. So when we think about all of this together, the question we really want to start with, because we're a little confused about it, is who is Kris Wilson?
Oh, Kris Wilson is an artist, a visionary, a dreamweaver, if you will. No, I feel so flattered. I appreciate that, and you really got the full spread, card games and everything. Kris Wilson. Let's see. If I were to say who Kris Wilson was, I would say he's some dipshit on the internet who likes to make stupid things, and other people would consider him a cartoonist. And let's see, should I go in the full story? Barbara Walters it. I grew up in Wyoming in a small town and in a very Mormon family, in a very Mormon town. And so I spent a lot of time alone learning to animate and draw and whatnot, just to kind of have something to do out in the middle of a town of 150 people. And definitely not only got inspired to do what I do now, and also met the people, my colleagues that I work with to this day, the co-creators Rob Denblecker and Dave Mickelfatrick, and we all met through Newgrounds. Like, we owe everything to Newgrounds.
How did you meet through Newgrounds? See, I'm such a Newgrounds. I don't want to. I don't know anything about it, and I feel like I missed out because a lot of the people that I love come from there. Psychic Pebbles, did a lot of Newgrounds stuff. Right. Oni still does a lot of Newgrounds stuff. What is that like, and how do you compare it to YouTube? Is there like a community there? Are there forums? How do you meet people there? You just share your work and then talk elsewhere, or what?
Yeah, it was absolutely a user-based submission portal, and so like people would put up their animations or their games up there. And now it's art and music as well. But yeah, there's a forum and a community there, and then there's communities within those communities, and that's where Rob, Dave, and I were. We were in the stick figure animation community, which was surprisingly large and niche. There was several websites, that were kind of in that realm, but it really was like a little pocket community within the Newgrounds community. And I would compare it. It was a lot more, everything was kind of just to get your work recognized. It was a lot less angled. It wasn't a gold rush. Nobody was making a ton of money or anything like that. So there's really big camaraderie with, a big community where just about everyone in there is also an animator or also makes games. And it was definitely just a lot more of free love than compared to YouTube, where YouTube kind of makes everyone feel a bit more competitive, and if they're doing it full time, their job's on the line. So a lot more contention with YouTube. And Newgrounds, the people who own it and run it are also they know their audience. They're part of it. They also would submit animations and games to their own portal and stuff. And so you don't have that crazy meddling like you'll get from YouTube, and things like their rules and all the drama and what happens over there is kind of completely barren when it comes to Newgrounds.
And how did you guys come together on that site, though? Like, what goes from probably liking each other's work and, you leave some comments and shoot some messages and whatever. How did that turn into a real thing?
I was a very big fan of many animators in that community, and Rob and Dave made animations that I was a fan of. Rob had his own website called Stick Suicide, and it had its own little portal, its own kind of tiny Newgrounds. And I was putting my animations up there as well, and started using the forums and kind of getting connected in there as there too, and kind of wanted to take a break from animation because I was working a job, going to high school, and doing animation. And so I was taking a little break while I was sick and just started drawing comics as a way to just kind of, I don't know, do something, entertain myself. And then I started posting it onto Rob's forum, and they really loved it and got in contact, and they're like, hey, we want to kind of start a new website and kind of distance ourselves a little bit from like, this is a stick figure animation community, and just be a bit more broad, open that umbrella a little wider. So, they asked if I wanted to come do the comic on the new website, which is Explosm, and be right before it was launched and stuff. And then we never kind of expected it to get big or anything. We just kind of started making some back and forth and sending it to each other, make each other laugh. Really, it's very similar to when you're in a classroom and you're passing drawings or notes or whatever around. It's kind of like that, but with a bunch of strangers that are grown men on the internet.
It's interesting to me, though, that you all work on this one thing, though. Like it's weird and amazing that you would also be like, hey, like, here's my thing, Cyanide and Happiness, and then the other guys are like, well, here's my version of Cyanide and Happiness. I mean, it must not seem weird to you now, but hearing that story, it seems like he would be like, well, here's my cartoon, instead of you all being like, well, we all make this cartoon that like Kris, you like originally came up with, but you all have different versions of it. That's so unique, I think. Right.
Yeah. And, it wasn't very formal at all. It wasn't like, hey, what are you doing my cartoon or anything like that. It's, we were just sending them back and forth over Messenger, and just conversations would turn into inside jokes. And for me, it was really, just kind of nice to be able to see the different perspective and take on the style and take on the humor. And I think that because there's, we, Rob, Dave, and I have such a similar sense of humor and get along so well, and just kind of have a lot of similar goals and ideas for it, that we're able to kind of do things like 4 seasons of a full show while we're making a card game, while we're doing a comic every day, stuff like that. And it helps us kind of, I guess, just band together for a lot of that stuff where you have a lot of people. If I was trying to do this amount of stuff on my own, it would absolutely be one of those situations where it's too overwhelming. And then you have creative melancholy, and then you go on hiatus for 5 months and then come back for 2 and go again. That seems to happen all the time if people fill their plate too much and try to be a one-man army. So it worked out really well for us, and I think we also kind of stood out by doing that instead of especially at the time with webcomics specifically, most of them were about video games, and most of them had a snarky main character that kind of resembled the artist and stuff like that. So the fact that we wanted to do things very, very differently, and it's kind of our shit posts for webcomics is kind of how it initially started. So yeah, but I definitely think the fact that that it all became a small team really quickly helps a lot of it. Just helps you kind of still enjoy doing it too.
I don't think that we've had a guest, Matt. Have we had a single guest who has this story or even remotely anything like it? Because you talk about one-man bands. We did an entire podcast about one-man bands on YouTube and burnout and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of YouTubers can't even deal with hiring like literally an editor to help them out. Right. And here you are, like just the polar opposite of that, where from day one, pretty much you were collaborating with other people, and I think it's worked out kind of okay.
Yeah.
I
like to think
it's
so.
It's worth pointing out that the one guy who very naturally jumped in to that collaboration, and from what you've said, the whole process kind of juggles both humility and confidence. Like, I know I'm reading into a little bit that you've said, but it's obvious that that you had a sense of what you could do well and what other people did well and how that combined. Well, the guy who did this is the one where we're using the word millions every single time we describe anything quantitative. There's a reason for that. Like
exactly.
This is not a coincidence at all.
It is not a coincidence. That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, yeah, this is the first guest where we're like, oh, this guy's helped build a media juggernaut. And how did he do that? Let me check notes. Oh, by working with other people. Bizarre.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's important.
Doing it right from the beginning?
Right from the beginning? Well, I did. I started late. I think I had my own website where I was doing Cyanide and Happiness, and it was a small little website with a Flash front end that I just kind of would update every day. And I did that since October 13th, 2004. And then Rob and Dave and everybody, we started working together and putting things together by mid 2005. So there was a little stretch where I was trying to take Cyanide and Happiness and pitch it to publishers and making some self-published books and stuff like that. But it was very kind of like Teespring Cafe Press style, like put your images and we'll in a file and we'll send you a book of it kind of stuff. And so I think that for a lot of people, especially if you want to really dig your feet into like a creative department or any sort of creative branch, it's good to understand that, hey, people who do like editing or marketing or accounting or all those other things, that's their art form. Do you really want to start that, from zero and make that your art form, and it can get in the way of other things? Or would you, kind of trust and respect the people who really value doing that in the first place? So for me, it makes a lot of sense. And now we've worked up to being an actual legitimate animation production house and have 24 full-time artists and animators, collaborate with people across the world and overseas, and just it's a group effort, but it's also a really intimate one. And when Dave, Rob, and I initially started, we started working together about a year before we ever met in person. Dave lived in Ireland, in Northern Ireland. Rob lived in Texas. I lived in Wyoming. And we all met up at San Diego Comic-Con. and that was the first time just meeting each other. So like, we even like, we still work to this day kind of at a distance and with other people around the world. So, starting up where we're all collaborating and making animations and comics, not knowing each other in person and being from different parts of the world and stuff, definitely made us much better at and much more prepared to bring in other animators who can do things better and work with sound editors and music composers and things of that nature.
The chat is talking about everything that you're saying here, and Trevstead has a question that it's what I was thinking too as you were talking, that if you've got 24 full-time people on a project that's a creative one, we're not talking a factory making widgets where you can train somebody else to make a widget. How do you trust people as you expand in a collaborative way to execute this vision that the three of you had? What's unique about that with creativity?
That's a great question. And, I definitely say that when we had to transition more over to like, you slowly have to kind of let go the handlebars a little bit and kind of trust people, trust your artists' input and their take on things, but also, have a clear vision and lay it out and have a goal set in mind. But it did take us a little bit of work to transition over to where you can not only train somebody to understand your voice and your vision, and but also having the confidence in them to allow them to expand upon ideas or change things, or even say, no, this idea is better, and run it past you. It's hugely important, but it's by no means is it impossible. I think the fact that for us, we're employing people because we want them to work with us steadily, and we want them to be safe in doing that and have, benefits and all everything like that. But to us, it's very much not so much when you picture like a boss employee kind of relationship. These are people we collaborated with beforehand, people we would still feel like we're doing a collaboration with. And I think just kind of that perspective has helped keep things, moving well creatively, but also not losing the soul of it, or being very visibly by someone completely different.
I want to circle back really quick to something, because when you were talking about how you need to be able to trust people to have their own art, whether it's an accountant or an editor or a sound designer or whomever. Matt, we were literally talking about that this morning in regards to Dunning-Kruger, right? And how people who can be like in the 1% of one thing, all of a sudden think they can be in the 1% of everything, because it's like, oh, I am so good at, like, I don't know, whatever, drawing cartoons, that obviously I would be also really good at balancing a checkbook. What's the difference? I'm so good and I'm so successful. And it's like, well, there actually is a difference. And maybe the person who is awesome at balancing a checkbook is as good at that as you are at drawing hilarious comic strips.
Right. I mean, if your passion is like, if you don't have any passion for something you have to do to kind of build up your creative endeavor, you're also not going to feel, you're not really going to feel that satisfaction if you complete, like, if you do a good marketing thing, or a good, you do your bookkeeping right or whatever, you're actually going to feel very aggravated by that, because you don't get any sense of pride from picking up a aspect of business you had no intention to and trying to be just decent at it. It really is like, some people are really good at scheduling, and let them do their work, let them do their art in that respect.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is when it comes to training people about cyanide and happiness, do you have a Bible or anything that you created that says like, hey, never do this, make sure that, things go this way if this is the scenario or whatever? Does that exist?
Yeah, absolutely. It's got, we have a character Bible that has everything like how to properly do turnarounds. They're very basic stick figures for the most part, but considering that they're, got such a marshmallow body shape, and then, how you fully rotate them, how if they're facing, 3/4 away from the camera, how do you show the side of their mouth and their eyes and stuff? So yeah, we do have that. That helps people get into the style. And then some people come in and we've had, animators come in who add a bit more to it or change it up and make it, just kind of add a bit of flavor to certain things, like the style of the background art might be different from what we usually do. And then we move over to kind of that better standard and allowing artists to have input and suggestions. They're staring, animation takes a long time. They're staring at things for hours. If I write a script and storyboard it, I'm not going to be poring over it every millisecond of it the way they are. So they could have some really good ideas along the way. Yeah. The input is helpful. We also have a Bible of characters and recurring characters and just background characters that we've used a lot, things of that nature too.
It reminds me of there's some guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but some old Simpsons animator will occasionally post this stuff from back in the day, from like 1988 or 89 or whatever, that will show some of like the do's and don'ts. And it's so fascinating to me to see, Bart drawn like straight on, and he looks really weird, and it'll say like, never draw Bart like this.
Yeah. His nose going straight down and it's just dead stare right at the camera.
Yeah.
So good. I love when people catch those moments where they do accidentally break those rules and they show how visually jarring that is. The King of the Hill has the King of the Hill production, and some of the character Bibles for that are surprisingly good. The ones Mike Judge made, and they're entertaining to even read just because of the way he, says never do this and explains like, this makes them we'll give them banana fingers or however. But it's a good one to go through too. I love digging through that kind of stuff.
I noticed.
And do you have,
what was it? Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, sorry. Go on, Kevin. Oh no, you.
What I wanted to bring up was a few months back, you posted a painting, I think, of your dog. Was it your dog? And it was amazing.
That was my mother's dog.
Your mother's dog.
Oh, thank you.
This amazing painting. And all I've seen from you is Cyanide and Happiness, which is literally stick figures. And meanwhile, you are an incredibly accomplished artist. Is it weird to not be able to flex that? Like, do you want to flex that more? Like, or no?
Every once in a while. I mean, yeah, on occasion, just because like they're like Cyanide and Happiness and then something kind of a bit more technical. They're both fun in different ways. They're fun to draw, like the actual action of drawing them. And yeah, I like same with Dave and Rob, especially Dave. Dave's a painter as well, and he can draw really well. But there's something fun about it's the humility thing. Like Matt mentioned earlier, like we know we can draw well, but there's something kind of fun and therapeutic and important about drawing something poorly and getting it out there. And yeah, it's more of an exercise of writing than it is of art most of the time with CNH. But it's actually kind of a known creative exercise that if you're in a bit of a slump or you have writer's block, to just make something shitty with no edits, don't go back and change anything and just run through it. It helps you not overthink and overanalyze the thing that you're working on seriously. You know what I mean? And but thank you. I appreciate that about the painting and stuff. I remember, Kevin, you and I had a great exchange about how George Bush taught me how to paint dogs. And
yeah. Well, I'm a huge art fan, man. That's like all I follow on Instagram. I don't know if people don't really know that about me, but I'm a huge art fan. It just blows me away. I find it sounds so like fawning and lame, but I find it to be like magic. Like I look at paintings and I look at digital paintings and illustrations, and I just am in awe. I'm like, I don't know how you did that at all. And I actually feel this way a lot about, this is so weird, about a lot of architecture too. Like I get blown away by walking through like an arena and just looking up at all like the pipes and stuff in the ceiling. And I'm like, yo, okay, Matt and I were on a nuclear submarine last summer, and it was the most insane thing ever. No matter where you looked in that submarine, you're like, I can't believe this is real. Like, who did this?
Right.
I sound like a fangirl fawning over like a K-pop artist or something, but that's genuinely how I feel about stuff like that, when like human ingenuity is so beyond my understanding of how we develop something like that. It just like breaks my brain.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like just when it's all the geometry, and then the fact that there's a feeling of composition to it and stuff. I couldn't understand that either, because it's such a technical and I don't know. I know it's kind of inaccurate, but it's kind of a technical left-brained way to make something like really pretty and intricate and also functional. It's amazing. I can agree with that.
No, that's thinking about the inside of the submarine there. It truly was, everywhere you looked was endlessly complex. So there would be just this little wall for something, and for whatever reason, there are 27 things plugged into it with wires going to seemingly nothing. They obviously have a purpose, like there's, they're not just like stapling wires to the wall, but it's impossible to know what's actually going on. And that would be in like 1 square foot that you looked at. Right. You take one more step and then it's a new thing. And it was, it was just this incredibly complex combination of functionality, of design, because it wasn't really nutty. It was perfect. It was like those satisfying compilations of like cable management that's beautiful. There's all of that stuff for every inch of it, and that is the same thing on buildings. It's the same thing on webcomics. To be honest, I like a lot of the simple ones. I like the style that you guys do. Toothpaste for Dinner is another favorite of mine.
Yeah, Drew is excellent.
Drew is amazing, and Married to the Sea, which I think he did with his wife. That's right. Those are other examples of it. Yeah, Natalie D. Is that her name?
Yeah, Natalie D. She had her own comic series for a long time too. Yeah, they're a super group, and they just they do so many things, and it's crazy. Just they're good at everything that they're doing out there, and doing it daily. Yeah, super good.
But what impresses me about it is the
pants
simplicity. What?
You don't know Pants? I've sent you Pants. Pants always does like one panel comics. One of them that was really funny is a guy staring at a huge canvas with 2 little circles on it, and his butt cheeks have paint dripping from them. And that's the whole comic.
Yeah, and his drawing style is so good too. I love it. See, that's what I was mentioning earlier, where I just love when it's an absurd snapshot into a moment, and then your brain tries to figure out, how do we get here? That stuff kills me.
Well, what all of these people do so well, and I think of Good Bear Comics, which isn't hugely popular, but it should be. One exploded on Twitter. I got the coveted Wang retweet, which was awesome. But it was just a couple panels where Ash from Pokemon is looking at a lineup of Pokemon. He says, "Pikachu, I choose you," and it zooms out and shows that it's a Pokemon brothel.
Right, I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. And so when I think about what you do, I think about Good Bear, Natalie D. and Drew Toothpaste. It's nailing this absolute simplicity. It's like finding exactly the right note and then hitting that note. Do you think it's harder, since Kevin, is talking about amazingly detailed paintings that you can do, and you can clearly go in that direction? Which is harder, making something that is incredibly complex, or reducing a thing down to absolute simplicity?
I would say there's more to risk the more complex it is. Not just for the person viewing it, but also for you and your creative process. With, since we're doing gag strips, it's kind of like the hardest part about it is it's not dissimilar from stand-up comedy, aside from the fact that you're not working on a joke and telling it over and over and improving on it. You're tossing it out there and, with no authority over, do they get it? Can I make these changes or anything like that? And so it's very much like kind of almost just the workshop step. And I think that also a lot of webcomic artists have the ability to do what we do, but I do notice that a lot of webcomic artists can get in a rut where I don't know, maybe it's not a rut, but they just get they get tunnel vision on making, showing off their drawing skills, and that's the more important part than the writing or the story or the joke or the progression. Sometimes it is so based on the art that the writing can take a back seat. And at least for us, and those more minimalistic gag strips, those were not really around very much when we first started. And the breaking something technical down and summarizing it is a good way it kind of just takes you down, so you're not I guess just to have some humility about it and kind of see it in a looser framework. I just kind of see a lot of people chase their own tails because like just about every artist I know has these rituals that they do when they're drawing it, and they're things that nobody will notice or see or understand, but it's like important to do that. And for me, especially with drawing more detailed stuff, I kind of like to draw a lot of horror, a lot of dark kind of artwork that is like photorealistic in a way. And that's kind of my escape in a lot of ways. If I had to do it regularly and as a job, it would definitely, like, you got to be careful that it doesn't become a negative thing in your brain or a stress or anything like that. You got to figure out your ways to make sure you're having fun and you're doing it because you want to. Absolutely. But between the two, I would say people who are going through that stress of just overanalyzing themselves and being very serious and detailed and trying to make it, I really want, it's like, you'll see this with directors who write their own movies. They know what shots they want to shoot, and then they'll try to write a story to fulfill that for them so they can get to those shots they want to shoot at those locations. And, that could work for some things, but I think it's a little artistically backwards, especially if you really like kind of are putting some effort into the writing or respect it.
I heard that Batman and Superman suffered from that, where Zack Snyder basically just comes up with shots that he thinks look epic and then tries to make a movie out of that. And it's like, okay,
right,
like, epic shot, bro, but this movie sucks.
Exactly. Well, if you watch a lot of college films and stuff where people are kind of a bit more amateur, but starting to get like the real equipment and tools to kind of make their thing, they it's very few writers and directors of film that can really pull that off well, where they treat the script and everything as its own art. They treat the shots as its own art and the lighting and everything. Like Guillermo del Toro, he's one I really admire. He manages to do that, but you can definitely see that be tried a lot. And, it's tough. It works for like a noir film, I think. But if you're just like, oh, I know this creepy old house and I know this shot where the window comes in, and then you're trying to write just to get there, it's a little backwards.
Yeah. Where can we see your horror art? Do you share that?
I share some of it. I need to consolidate it a bit better, but I guess one place is you can find them trickling in on my Instagram every now and then, at Kris Explosm. I haven't done some lately because I've been sleeping well. I have pretty bad insomnia, and something that helps me get sleepy is kind of working on those drawings and digital paintings, because it's a lot of like, you're zoomed in and it's really almost repetitive, and it kind of hypnotizes me and gets me sleepier, which not trying to be a weird spooky goth boy when I say I like drawing horror to get sleepy, but I definitely want to do more. And we've talked about the idea of, we have some great ideas and stuff that we want to do that are a mixture of, like Cyanide and Happiness looks very silly and friendly on the surface, and then it's also very dark and can be very depressing at the same time and allow us to surprise people. And we've talked about trying the other way around, where we do horror that surprises you with the silly humor and stuff like that. And yeah, it's kind of a flipping of the coin, kind of the same exercise in a different way. But yeah, I'd love to do more in the future. Just gotta get to it.
Well, speaking of horror, you mentioned artists have rituals. So aside from like sacrificing a goat, tossing Eye of Newt into a cauldron, that sort of thing. Right. What is it? What are some examples of artist rituals? Because I've never heard of this before. I didn't know that was a thing.
Right. Especially for people when they're drawing. And I've noticed from, just several people that we've met as well, that, it's a dumb thing that I do for the comics. That my wife just loves making fun of me for. Like, I'll draw the arms and legs over and over so many times, and I'll draw it one way and then just Control Z, and then I'll draw it again, and it'll be exactly the same. But my brain will be like, yeah, that's the one. And it doesn't matter. It's not anything people would notice. Like, some people will sketch out their entire comic on paper, and it'll look pretty much identical than if they just drew it digitally, but they need to do it. They need to do that step before just to feel better. Some people just write out all the text in their comic first and then pour over that and pour over where the text is located on the comic and everything. And it's rituals like that. Some people have strange ones where they draw the inside of the facial expression before they draw the outside. And a lot of people kind of give themselves these habits that it can feel like a little fish out of water if you don't have those habits to lean on. And yeah, it can come in a lot of different ways for sure.
You talk about hitting Control Z on a thing and then doing it exactly the same. Andre APM is in the chat right now, and he does art streams on Twitch. And I am not an artist. I can draw nothing at all, right? I work in geometry and trigonometry. That's how I see almost everything, right? So I can't draw anything. So I love hearing from the people who do, when it's people like you and Psychic Pebbles. I love this. So I like watching APM streams. It's with all sorts of things that he's drawing. And that's something that I noticed, is that I'll be watching this and I'll see him do lines on a character, and then back it up and do it again, and back it up and do it again. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, come on, man, like 3 of these 4 things were exactly the same. How does this work? What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? Yeah. And he says, no, in the chat, capital letters, no.
No.
I know that he's seeing something that I'm not, and that's fascinating to me. I love knowing that I'm witnessing a process that it's almost like a book in a foreign language. Like, oh yeah, I know there are words on this page. I just can't understand any of them.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, I'm the same way. Like, hey, that's how I feel about geometry and architecture. Like, even with drawing, I am so absolutely terrible with interior perspective, and I've put in the practice, and I've tried to get better and better and better and better, but it's something that, I don't have the natural eye for sure. But yeah, I think that's where they're defining their styles. I think when a lot of people say no, that, like you'll see people just doing the line art to a drawing that they did, and they'll do a good one. It seems right, like it's right on their sketch of that line, and they'll redo it. And I think that's how people are like really find their style, is those kind of nitpicky things that they say it has to be this way or it has to be in this order.
I have so many more questions for you. I can't believe we're almost like have 50 minutes gone by, but so I really want to start hitting some of this stuff.
Yeah, please, lightning round if we have to. No worries.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the big questions I have is I really want to kind of go back to the beginning of the conversation and better understand how it is you are able to work with your partners on all of these different projects. Like, do you assign, is one person like really into the game and that guy's like, I'm going to take on like the game. You guys trust me. You can like chime in when you want to. But it has to go something that like this, right? Because you can't all be signing off on every single step of the process on 97 tremendously different projects.
Right. Well, you absolutely nailed it. I mean, it's exactly like that. Like one person is more focused on like, you can, be like, hey, I'm going to run this line of merch. And it is very much like step in if you have any input or any say. And, we're also just talking a lot anyway. So there's a lot of, like, oh, it'd be really cool to do a flip book or something like that. And then one person will be like, I can make that happen. And we know our strengths, and the fact that there's three of us, we make a pretty good triangle of helping each other where we fall short. And it absolutely can't be three of us telling some poor animator three completely different set of notes or something. That would be bad for everyone. And so it's from behind the scenes with Rob, Dave, and I. It's very kind of conversational, and then if one person is just kind of a shoe-in to do something, like for me, for me, it's Freakpocalypse, the video game. I'm very much the person spearheading that, and while I'm doing that, Rob can work on a card game idea he's working on, and Dave can direct a show or start a new project on YouTube. So I think you kind of nailed it right off the bat.
Well, I figured it had to be that way because it just made no sense to me when I'm looking through all these projects and I'm like, okay, so three guys are doing like 9 things. It it doesn't add up. It's so ridiculous. But speaking of projects, and forgive me if you have gone down this road and I don't know about it, but a lot of this is so kind of mysterious to me, even finding out information that I just have to ask, like TV show, movie. What have you gone down either of those roads? Have you thought about it? I mean, you must have been approached by networks.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been approached by networks. We've approached networks back in, I believe around 2010. We were on the Comedy Central production slate as well. But we chose to withhold and build our own thing on the internet and kind of stay true to like our roots when it comes to that.
That was a good idea.
We have
that worked out.
I think so. I mean, we didn't think TV was gonna keep going, and there is a level of authenticity though if you make it onto TV, and I think people still understand and respect that. But we kind of wanted to be a little crazier and more experimental, and we didn't want, if the Cyanide Happiness show on a network failed, we didn't want to lose any opportunity to still do it on the internet and be crazy about it. And we've had shows that are not Cyanide and Happiness related that we've either made ourselves or produced others. One of our shows called Purgatony is either its run ended recently, but it was on Sci-Fi, and we've definitely been in talks with people about movies and stuff like that. We made 4 seasons of a show, but that was mostly streaming networks like Verve, VRV, and things of that nature. But yeah, we always like want to make something for television. It just has to be in kind of the right way, the right setting. We don't want someone to just come up and say, that's a nice Cyanide and Happiness you got there. It'd be a shame if someone took half of it and put it on the internet at a bad time, or put it on TV at a bad time slot. And, just then it becomes fighting over who owns it and stuff like that. We don't want to mess with that. We want to just like do it pure, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I don't think people realize that when you sell a TV show, you sell the thing, right? It's no longer yours. It's like if you sell your car, you can't have half of the car back. You sold it.
Right.
The person who bought the car now owns your car. It's no longer your car. And if your car
I just like
is
sitting in the
Cyanide and
passenger
Happiness, then you can't drive it anymore. It's like, dude, you sold that thing.
Right.
I was trying to explain this to somebody about a week ago because Kevin and I were talking about the differences from TV to web to whatever and the way the ownership plays out on things. And yeah, I was talking to somebody who's not in media at all. And I was struggling to explain it decently. And yeah, I just wasn't getting anywhere. And then I eventually just said, like, you know how when you go to the grocery store and buy bread, it stops being their bread and now it's yours? Like, I just spent 5 minutes trying to explain that concept, but that's really pretty much what happens when you sell the TV show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They might send you a slice annually.
Right.
Imagine Sarah Lee just barges into your kitchen and like makes a PB&J and it's like, what?
Oh, you don't remember? I still have 3 years of licensing rights to your bread. So.
Yeah, I own 10% of this loaf, which, is about 2 PB&Js. So I don't understand what the problem is.
I can also take it and sell it.
Right. Break into your house and sell it to the neighbors.
Sell the spin-off. Sell some toast. The other thing I really wanted to hit before I forget, I just wrote down Tik Tok Effect on my notes here, because when you were talking about the reason this made so much sense to me and why I think our listeners could learn from it is when you were talking about, how did you put it? You were essentially saying like you should do a quick and dirty rough draft version, or like the simplest, cheapest.
Oh, shit post something. Make something that, like I call it shit posting for like
overly precious about a thing. Like make it the worst you can and just kind of put it out there. The reason I wrote down Tik Tok Effect is because we've been making TikToks for Vsauce 2, and that has really changed. I know, Matt, your perspective on what we should be doing on YouTube, right?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, completely.
Yeah, I can, like, TikTok is a very great example about that. Because nobody's trying to, I guess, in most cases, they're not trying to like overproduce a TikTok. You know what I mean? They're not trying to put too much into it. It's kind of the spontaneity and ridiculousness of a lot of them. That is why it's fun to do, or why people find it fun to watch. It always reminds me of a great quote from Syriac that I think about almost daily. He said, "Success in art is when you make a bunch of stupid shit while you wait for people to like your real shit, and then you find out that your real shit is your stupid shit." And I think that holds true. I think it's even works for musicians. It works in so many fields.
It's like the Tom Petty thing. There was I think it was Behind the Music on Tom Petty, and he was talking about how he wrote Free Fallin', and supposedly, whatever album Free Fallin' is on, which is, probably his most famous song, they were taking a break during recording, like sitting out back by the pool or whatever. And Tom Petty just starts making up like a purposefully dumb song. Mm-hmm. And whomever was producing that album was like, whoa, wait, what is that song? Like, you haven't played this song for me before. And Tom Petty's like, it's nothing. It's garbage. And he's like, no, it's not garbage. That's the song. Like, keep working on that song. Let's record it. And that ended up being Free Fallin', which is, one of the most famous like pop songs of all time.
Right.
I think we saw this with Twitter as well, where the confines of that platform, especially when it was just the 140 characters, you couldn't do a lot. You can't do a lot now, but you could do even less back in the day. And you think about people like Carson, who have just, I don't know what number he's at now in terms of followers, but
over 1 million, I think.
He has. Yeah, he hit 1 million, I think, when we talked to him. He just hit that. But yeah, I mean, you can't sit down and spend 4 or 5 hours writing a tweet. It's just not going to work that way. You dash the thing off, you give it a few seconds of thought and do it. And for him, it revealed a pattern of comedic genius. If his platform had been, I don't know, like Onion articles like it was 20 years ago,
like
writing
Medium
like
or
fake
something.
op-eds. Yeah.
Right.
Would that have shown through? I bet it wouldn't have. I'm not saying that he's not capable of writing a 750 word piece that's very funny, but
Right.
I bet he got a whole lot more mileage out of just blasting out a bunch of really dumb things that turned out to be really awesome. And I feel like TikTok is the same with video. I feel like the shorter form things where you got a couple frames in a CNH thing. It's not like you cut your teeth on 200-page graphic novels.
Right.
Would that have worked out the same way? I don't know. You would probably
I don't
know,
think
but my
so.
guess is it wasn't.
Not from my perspective, because like it's a give and take where if you're there's got to be at least a sense of how people see something on the outside of it while you're working on something. Otherwise, you could end up in this area where you're doing it for just your own sake, and it's a bit more masturbatory than it would normally be. It'd be a little less. Like I think people, when they see something that's kind of just for fun and silly and loose, I think they understand that feeling, like that, made in the garage or the backyard kind of feeling, and the lack of seriousness for it. I think really resonates with people. And I mean, with that Tom Petty analogy, when I made my first 20 or 30 CNH script, the CNH comics, I didn't show them to anybody. I didn't even show them to my friends in person. I just thought it was this stupid shit that only I would laugh at. And I was drawing it with a laser mouse, and it just was like meant to be shitty. It was meant to be shitty and be understanding that it was shitty. And for me, it was Rob and Dave who came in and said, "No, what's this? This is great." And it probably wouldn't really have come to surface if that wasn't the case.
You know what a gift
I'd
it
be
is
too
to be able to make
intimate about
something
it.
that only you think will be as funny and other people find funny? Because let me tell you, there are a lot of things that I think are really funny and no one else does. And I'm like, man, I am the only person who thought that was funny.
Oh, I'm definitely with you there. I mean, that still happens. That still absolutely happens. There's lots of times. And I mean, when all three of us are often surprised that a certain Joker animation will be popular, and then be like, but why isn't this one? This one makes me laugh for blank and blank reason, and it did okay. But also I can't trust that voice in my head. I definitely have imposter syndrome. So it's almost kind of freeing, because nobody can be more critical of me than I am. So, but it also means that when people say, "Oh, this is," like when something gets really popular, I'm just like, "Oh, that it shouldn't be. I don't know why it is." And there's no winning there. So, yeah, I think that taking the dive is really important. Like, we're very used to that feeling of, like, with any art, it's never finished. You'll just work on it forever. But some things are done, and you should just kind of let it go and let other people have their own relationship with whatever you put out. And so we definitely have become very versed in that, taking the dive and taking risks and just throwing it out there. And, that helps.
Yeah. Well, especially you guys make so much stuff too. It's not like, sometimes on Vsauce, it takes so long to put a video together. It's like, well, this one better be good. But,
right.
It would be nice, to be able to just hit some singles now and then, to use a baseball analogy, or even just some make some bunts and not always have to swing for the fences.
How about a base on balls, Kevin? How about that?
Yeah, just get
How about
a walk.
we exercise some disciplined hitting and take a few pitches.
Mhm.
I would absolutely love to see what that shitpost version of a Vsauce episode would be. You know what I mean? Like, almost anti-Vsauce kind of take. It might be an interesting exercise, even if it was just something you have for yourself to look at.
Yeah. The
with
TikToks have been
Kevin
that
too,
way a
I
little
want to
bit.
jump in.
There you go.
Yeah, I want to jump in and analyze Kevin on this one, because the contrast between Kevin's Twitter feed and Vsauce 2 videos is probably the greatest contrast that I can think of any online creator that I follow. It's like it's like
Absolutely.
if there is some Nobel Prize winning novelist, he wins the prize in literature, and then you find out that I don't know, a couple hours a day, he drives down the interstate, goes into a rest stop, and like writes insults on the bathroom wall. That's
Great analogy.
That's the rift between Kevin Lieber's Vsauce 2 and at Kevin Lieber.
Right. I tried to picture like George Orwell writing insults on a bathroom wall.
Well, it's freeing to be able to try to come up with the dumbest thing possible in a contrast of trying to come up with the smartest thing possible. It's just kind of like a mental exercise.
It's that feeling of doing something, but there being less risk because you're not sitting there overly respecting it. And I think it helps you get into that headspace. It helps you work out that muscle in your brain to just kind of write it and enjoy something when you're making it and trust yourself.
I also just like stupid things.
Same.
You know what I mean? And and I don't know what you call it, but it's like crafted stupidity, maybe. I don't know if there's but I really love crafted stupidity. Like thinking of something that's so dumb that I haven't heard anybody else say before. Like today, I did a tweet about drinking burnt water. That's really stupid. But to me, that's really funny. Like the idea of burning water and that giving off a flavor that's like disgusting is so stupid.
I love that. Like a waiter brings you water and you take a sip and you go, my water's burnt. And give it back to them.
Yeah. God, that would be funny if you were if you slammed it down. You're like, this is medium. I asked for medium rare, and you just slam it down on the table.
Yeah, I wanted my waters lightly toasted, not burnt.
Yeah. Oh man. We have to go to questions, but before we get to questions from our patrons, I wanted to say all of this is so amazing and happy and great and encouraging. I want to ask you what sucks, because a lot of the time on this podcast, we talk about things that are grievances or troubles or problems people are having. This whole time has been nothing but like kumbaya.
Right.
Kris, like what sucks? You know what?
It's been too much. It's been too much happiness. And I think we need some cyanide.
Oh,
well said.
There you go.
I agree.
Hey yo. Ring a ding ding.
Absolutely.
Ring a ding ding.
He said it. He said the thing.
He said the thing. Yeah. Poison us.
I'm getting booed in the chat. I'm getting actual boos. Oh, and I got a 10 out of 10, so it balances out. Good.
There you go. That means it's a cult classic. So I would say that I'm so glad. Oh, thanks for asking. Hey, what sucks? Because this is let's make this a therapy session. There's lots of things about it that I would say they're not positives. For example, the fact that we find ourselves in a little bit of a situation where people don't know us very well as us personally, because the CNH brand is so recognizable and it's been around for nearly 16 years. So it's it definitely puts us in a situation where we've fought through several times when we're trying to make something new, because we've always been making things new. It hasn't always been all CNH all the time. We've done stuff on the side for the very beginning and trying new ideas and things of that nature. It's how we ended up with like the card game and stuff like that. But you'll get a lot of people who are like, oh, just stick to the comics. And they were telling us that when we were making weekly animations on YouTube. I've been told, with music or art or anything, there's people who say, oh, just stick to the comics, just stick to them. And it's actually, that's if they're actually fans of the comic, that's a terrible, terrible idea. And not to mention, we work on every holiday, and there's a level of, it can be really uncomfortable letting go of the reins on certain things, or things being beneath, your expectation or your vision, but you do have to kind of just let it work. And I definitely say that Rob, Dave, and I we just kind of have to take the effort to make sure that we don't, we never try to be offensive, but we found out that we're offensive just by people letting us know. And, we have to be mindful that we are also like kind of keeping people's, working and their lives together. And we don't, we normally in the past, we would be a lot more Wild West on the internet, but now we have to be a little bit more cordial so we don't endanger the lives of people who didn't do anything. Like, say we went on some just stupid rant on Twitch that got memed up or something, or got shot around, and we do dark stuff all the time, so I think a lot of people expect that from us. But if there ever was something in like a cancel culture way, or just doing a project that is too big and flops and everything, we're considering more than ourselves now, which can be difficult more personally. I don't think it bleeds into the creativity at all. So there's a lot of that. It's definitely when we first got into webcomics, we met up at San Diego Comic-Con. There were a lot of like grandfathers of webcomics there at the time. And something else I would say is kind of a negative thing is people will have an opinion on us before they've even met us, or, see what we look like, or even know our names. And when we first got into webcomics, there was definitely some people who had been in webcomics a little longer who just immediately hated our guts as soon as we showed up on the scene. And because we were, I guess, kind of deconstructing webcomics and shit posting and doing that kind of stuff. And they're like, hey, I draw every day and I draw really well and work really hard. Why the hell are people paying attention to that? And, I definitely say that there's some artists that I really admire who absolutely hate what we do, which like I understand on their behalf, but it's also like, man, it's demotivational when you are meeting people that you've enjoyed their work for your whole life, and then they're just like, right, oh, that thing, ooh, the scribbly stick figure comics, huh? Okay. So I'd say that's some of the negativity, but I could keep going, man. I could definitely make this like a therapy session.
Well, given all the offensive stuff and some of the reactions to that and some of the past things, why haven't you been canceled? Is that a legitimate question to ask?
Well, I think people know that we do it in a way that isn't malicious. We don't target people. And also, I think that we try to keep things not, it doesn't chase the headlines. It has a better shelf life if it's kind of an isolated joke. And I think that we do kind of, I think the humor is so vast. It could be really dark. It could be really depressing the next day. It could be funny the next day. And then it could be sweet the day after that. And I think now because humor, especially dark humor, it's so important to know the context of who's saying it. I think like people are going to be aware of George Carlin and the type of comedy he would do. But if it's, just your cousin at a family reunion saying that, you might not be able to trust that he's trying to be funny. He's trying to do a joke. And I think that trusting the source in which it comes from has a lot to do with the context of something. And I think people just realize that, realize what we're going for. Before we
go to our patrons' questions, is there anybody that you'd be willing to say who you looked up to, who like looked down upon you because they found out that
who
you
took
made
a massive
CNH?
shit on you? Can you detail this, please?
I'll name a name because he is so brazen about hating us that it's like, how could you not? Scott Kurtz, who did PvP, Player vs. Player. It's a webcomic about video games. It's been going on since, I believe, 97. He absolutely did not like us. I remember him even having a megaphone at the comic convention, and we had a pretty long line, and he had his megaphone up trying to convince people to leave hour line to go to his table, his empty table, because, we suck at all this and stuff like that. And I was 17, I was 17, just so excited to even meet people who read my comics. And so as a way to kind of almost passive aggressively get him back, after he did that, and the convention was ending that day, I went up and told him that he was a big inspiration and I don't think I would be there without him. And I think that digs into his skin, and I think he hates that. And yeah,
isn't that a bit of a self-own to have to like megaphone to people not to be over there, come over to me? Like,
have to do that,
right? Come over to me, and there's like 2 people standing at his booth, kind of just standing around.
It is,
yeah, I think so. It was kind of a nice experience because I love all the kind of newer webcomics that have come out of the last 10 years, and we've been able to know better and kind of treat people well. And now there's like a much friendlier kind of webcomics community from some of the newer stuff. And part of why we keep wanting to expand with Explosm and animation, and even with the YouTube side of things, is we want to kind of provide an umbrella. So to kind of get people boosted without having to deal with the same stopgaps that we had. So we kind of want to help people be in a more clear direction with that kind of stuff, and, spread it on, have more people make more stuff. Yeah, but that's one I'll name just because Scott Kurtz has been so brazen about it.
Yeah. I love that story. You're like, that story taught me not to be a jealous jerk. Like,
right.
It should be obvious. Like, that's such over the top, like 80s comedy movie villain kind of thing to do. Like something straight out of Revenge of the Nerds. Right?
Right. Exactly.
Don't go to the nerds booth. Come to our booth. We're the jocks.
Right.
I'm the store quarterback. I'm attractive. I have the cheerleader girlfriend. Why are you paying attention to the nerds? Arr!
Yeah, fuck these nerds. We're out of here. Let's go, everyone. And then everyone, let's go. Come on. Not with these losers. And we're kind of in a guys.
And then one by one they peel off and join the nerds. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so tell me more about this nerdy shit. They're not even listening to him anymore. And if someone has a megaphone at their booth and they're, saying that our comic sucks and it looks like shit, we're like, yeah, we know. That was our goal. You can't. We were making fun of ourselves first. You can't really beat us to that. So
who brings a megaphone to begin with to anything? Who's like
tiny megaphone too?
Better pack my megaphone in case those Cyanide and Happiness nerds show up, so I can tell the crowd who the real cool webcomic artist is.
Right.
Me.
They'll hear how loud and cool I am, and they'll immediately want to come talk to me because I
will sway them with the amplitude of my voice, shouting and echoing through the arena that I am the one true webcomic.
All others, there will be none before me, for I am the true video game webcomic,
the Alpha and the Omega.
I'm the police and the crime in webcomics town.
Population 1. Just me.
Population 1. But I'm looking for more population. So come on over.
I have a megaphone and cupcakes.
I'm very approachable.
Nothing says approachable like a megaphone.
Yeah, loudly yelling at people that what they like sucks.
It's a great persuasion technique.
Yeah. I like it. It's very guerrilla.
It's helpful.
Matt, definitely had balls for that move.
Do we have?
I gotta commend that.
Questions for Kris?
We do. We have a lot of questions. So lately we've been grabbing people for the show who have been requested for a long time. And that means that we have a lot of questions because your name has popped up for so long in the guest request section. You got a lot of Simpson stans out there who very
hell
much
yeah,
wanted
man.
this day to happen. So it does mean a bunch
Couldn't
of
do it
really
without the
good
Sims.
questions too. Yeah, like, so the usual questions that are things like, which do you prefer, pee pee or poo poo? You didn't get any of those. These are all real questions.
Oh, wow. Great.
Um,
Real Sims with real questions.
So it is time for substance.
All right. Bring the beef.
Oh God, I just scrolled up. The Kino Corner, who is obsessed with cinema, his question is: have you seen Cuties? This is the Netflix
No, I haven't
film
seen
Cuties that is so much in the news.
So many
neither
people
have
have
I.
tore it apart and analyzed it that I get it. I don't need to watch it.
I did see it
It's
crack the top 5 of movies on trending on Netflix. So somebody is out there watching it. It's just not us.
I would assume that's a little intentional. I think this is intentional on Netflix's behalf, and I think they wanted controversy. I think that was a Hail Mary they were going for. It sounds like anything. If anything, it sounds like it was really bad directing and editing, and it's just kind of bad art. So I think when people rise up and yell at bad art who kind of doesn't really nail a touchy message like that, I think that's what public outrage is for, right? Like, they didn't do anything illegal, but people can say, "Hey, don't do that, Jesus."
That's an amazing perspective on that I hadn't heard, though, and I really think that is true.
Yeah,
that at the end of the day, it's bad art.
It's bad art. It's more of a public crime, so people can go boo.
It is not Kino.
Yeah, not
it is
Kino.
not Kino.
I'm nonplussed about it.
Oh, well, let's go to a less somber, I suppose, question. Isaac wanted to ask about board games. So he asked, how do you and the team develop the board games, from ideas to physical concepts and play testing and all the things that go into that? And if there's anything really important to share with people who want to make physical games
Great
in
question.
the future.
Yeah, super
That's
good
a good
question. Yeah, if you look at something like Joking Hazard, that started as an experiment that we did on our website. We made something called a random comic generator, where we just made a bunch of jokes with 3 panels that you could randomize and shuffle around and lock. And we were having such a good time when we were building that we were kind of spending all day sending each other combinations of the random comic generator instead of getting our work done. And we were like, yes, we've built our perfect replacement, this this randomized comic creator. And then we kind of like looked at that as a physical game, because we wanted, part of it was we wanted to kind of try things with more like rules and expanding upon it, and how could you play this with a group where there's a winner and stuff like that. And we definitely do a fair amount of play testing. There's even card game ideas that we've play tested for years before and changed up and altered. Yeah, I'd definitely say that some of the most useful things, if you're in that situation, is almost like, it's kind of like friendly focus testing. Just let people who have never, friends of yours, play it together. Don't play it with them, show them how to play it, but just watch their reactions and their confusion to things, and what they kind of resonate to, or the parts they enjoy most, and trying to build on that and not being too sanctimonious about what it's got to be. Like, this is the game, this is the rules. Joking Hazard had a lot of different approaches we tried out to see what kind of is the more fun, more, it's like you and the people you're with make it fun. Aside from that, it's cards, and I think it opens up to that. It also makes people, like, being able to lay down a card you intentionally did and still laugh from the result and everything is like, that's a good sign that we tried to kind of follow. So yeah, I mean, let people who, don't try to control it. Let people play it in a natural environment and just observe it.
Before we go to the next question,
And
Matt, sorry.
oh,
I just want to say
go on.
that
No, it's cool.
Joking Hazard is such a good name. It's like,
Thanks.
it's like slightly, sometimes when things are so good, there's a little portion of me that gets annoyed that it's so good.
Mhm.
Like, does that make
I
sense?
should have thought of that.
Like, annoyed is like a weird word to use there, because I'm not like mad, but it's
Well, it feels like
so,
missed opportunity. Like, oh man, if only I came up with that.
Yeah, like I don't even need to. Like, there's no reason I need the name Joking Hazard, but it's so good it like hurts. You know when people talk about like a baby being so cute, they want to like squeeze it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
that
absolutely.
feeling. It's like that name is so good.
Totally.
I just want to like crush it.
I think that's also the reaction a lot of people have towards puns in general too, where it could be like a sucker punch to your brain, and you'll be like, laughing and then saying, "God damn it!" afterwards. Why'd I laugh at that?
And if anyone has ever tried to name any project before, whether it's a podcast or a card game or a YouTube channel, they'll know how quickly they'll realize how freaking hard it is to come up with a good name for anything. And when you do finally land on something, it just feels like the skies parted, the heavens shone down and gifted you this beautiful name. Like Joking Hazard, I think, is a great example of that. So I just wanted to interject there, and kind of,
those moments where everyone looks at each other and just nods. That's it.
Like,
that's the one.
Oh, it's so good. You can feel it in your bones.
Yeah.
So out of the video games, board games, comics, and videos, you've gone in so many different directions with the Cyanide and Happiness property. Which of those kind of strains or verticals has been the most fulfilling for you? And this comes from Conrad 500, which is very much like Conrad 250, but twice as powerful. So, we banned Conrad's 1 through 499, but this is the latest iteration. I mean, you've done so many of those things. I can't imagine they're all exactly the same for you.
As far as fulfilling, no, not quite. There can be aspects about them that are more fulfilling than others, and things like this or that. So far, I mean, the game's been very, the video game's been very rewarding and fulfilling to work on, but it's such a different process, where you're seeing it in pieces and then you watch the pieces slowly kind of click into place. With the animations, we get to see we see it in script form, we see it storyboarded, we see the animatic, we see the full animation, and we see it with sound and music. And so you get to kind of, enjoy it more straightforward and can adjust things linearly. I'd have to say that probably working on the animations is most fulfilling in my eyes. Just for the sake that, we spend a month per animation on them, and we work ahead. But what's great about it that I really enjoy is that since we work ahead, we'll write something, we'll pour over it, it'll get animated, we'll watch it and like it, and then it'll be like maybe 3 weeks until it goes up for everyone to see. And that's enough time to get that feeling of seeing it for the first time as close as you can. You know what I mean? It's why everyone's their worst critic, is because they're going to look at the mistakes and stuff. But if for us, it goes away for a little while after we've seen it, and then bam, we're putting it on the internet and seeing how people react to it. There's something it's very rewarding about that, because of just the time it takes to kind of almost forget about it and then have that feeling of, oh man, it's the closest you can get to seeing it for the first time. And I think that's super rewarding. It feels like you're getting to watch it with a group. And yeah, that's what's most rewarding for me right now. Maybe here in 2 years, it'll be something else. Like, oh yeah, we really got into Broadway musicals. The Cyanide and Happiness Broadway musical is really fulfilling. Couldn't imagine.
But as you do all this stuff, you've got to make some decisions based on the business. And this was the last part of Conrad's question, which is, these things have different profit margins, and that's a reality when you're talking about keeping 24 people gainfully employed with the health insurance and all those things that you were talking about. So what about when you look at books compared to videos and comics on that sustainable revenue side?
So the question is, how do we look at the sustainable revenue side? How does that affect things?
Yeah, I mean, do you kind of prefer doing one thing over another with that, or do you try to balance it out? To keep really keep everything flowing on that business side.
Right. Yeah. We've since the very beginning, the nature of doing what we do, like just digital media on the internet, is you got to kind of you can't guess the weather. You can't guess the weather with how digital media will change, or ad revenue, or censorship, or anything like that. You can't guess it, but you can try to steer through it. And so we try to premeditate and try to detect trends before they happen and things of that nature. For the sake of, like, a lot of our different productions kind of are independent from each other, where if something's running short, it's not going to cause something else to collapse, for example. And I think that kind of game of hot potato, where for example, one day we woke up and this is, I think, 2011. One day we woke up and our Google ads on our website, we were basically getting kicked out of Google Ads because of what their algorithm would automatically see in the comic, and there was no way of fixing that. So there's we're not going to go in and censor comics at all, let alone one by one, as this algorithm picks up. And so I think that the fact that we cast a wide net and we leave it in a position where, if if a book doesn't do well, it's not going to affect this card game, and I think that lets us kind of grow those branches out and expand on the things that are valuable to us, and they work well, and they're not getting screwed by some internet force majeure. And it also made us a little prepared to combat things like YouTube in general.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I imagine that just all of it continues to evolve. Like it does for everybody else in different ways, but it's constantly rolling along, and you have to change as everything else changes.
Right. We start small and see how it goes.
Yeah. So generally, Marco has a good question that we didn't get to at the very beginning, and we should have. How did you all arrive on Cyanide and Happiness as a name?
Let's see. When I was first I mentioned that I was doing Cyanide and Happiness a few years before Explosm existed. And for a while, it was I named it Kamikaze, with like COMICAZI, and I had a .tk website. And then just kind of looking around, I was like, oh no, this name's kind of been used fairly often, so I'm just going to change the name of the series. And the first thing I went to, Cyanide and Happiness, is dialogue in one of the earlier comics. It's the ingredients to back alley cotton candy. And so he's like, hey, what's in it? And he's like, Cyanide and Happiness, and he says, hot damn, I'll take 4. And I thought that Cyanide and Happiness was good. Like, the last thing I ever want to do is try to get a kid audience, or think that or make it have an appearance where children might see it as a children's cartoon. And so trying to just kind of give out that hint that it has that dark humor element to it. It's bright and sunshiny looking, and can be very dark and depressing and very real sometimes. And so I thought that name kind of fit the vibe, and changed it from there. I was really worried that people were going to hate saying it because it was so long. But now we have, the game Cyanide and Happiness presents Freakpocalypse, and it's just this long ass title. And kind of works.
There's a really quick question for Kevin, actually.
What?
That this one came in late, but I do want to ask it. Today was a big announcement from Sony. Kevin, what are you most excited about with the PS5?
There's a Demon Souls remake that's coming out at launch. I'm really excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait for that.
Same.
That's what I'm most excited about.
And when does it come out again? When does the actual thing arrive?
November 12th, I believe.
November 12th. Okay.
Yep.
Well, yeah, we wanted to ask this so that we could tell you that your wife has pre-ordered you a PS5, and we wanted you to find out live on air.
Woo!
What? Really?
Oh man, already scooped
Yeah,
one up.
really, yeah, seriously.
What?
I don't know,
thought
but
they
it
weren't
popped
going
on-
up until tomorrow.
It popped
my
on
God,
Twitter.
that's amazing.
And yeah, she tweeted about it, and I replied, and I was like, she said, "Don't tell Kevin that I did this," and I replied, I'm like, seriously, because I mean, we can just tell him on the podcast. You want to do this? She's like, yeah, do it.
That's awesome, man. You should marry her again.
Little Kevin's getting the PS5.
That's amazing. Oh man, I'm such a nerd, but I was really nervous about that, and I've been telling her how nervous I was because they peeled back the production like drastically on it. I think by 4 million units through March or something like that. So I've been
like
in my nerdy little gamer way, very neurotic about being able to actually get one. Because, dude, I remember. Are you a game? Like, you a big gamer, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Oh yeah, you're freaking making a game. So I don't know if you remember. I think it was a couple of years ago now. They made I think it was 100 million units sold PS4. They did some really special anniversary edition of the PS4. It was like this really nice dark translucent blue. I don't know. Long story short, they didn't make a lot of them, and I never got one. And I was always like really annoyed that I was never. Every time it would go on sale, it would just sell out immediately. I tried so many times, I could never get one. So I was so nervous that this was going to happen again with the PS5. But hey, that's what love is all about, fellas.
There you go. True love, right there. That's awesome. Yeah. Same Demon Souls remake I'm most hyped about when it comes to that. I haven't seen the whole thing with Sony yet today, but that's the one I've been licking my lips about.
Well, they showed like several minutes of nothing but straight gameplay footage of Demon Souls, and it looks amazing. So much better than the teaser that they did over the summer. Oh my gosh. There's no HUD. Man. I don't know if you can turn the HUD off, but it looks like you can. There's literally nothing on the screen except the game. It's so cool.
That's awesome. Dude, I want it more full screen. The more full screen, the better. I eat up all the design and monster design and stuff like that. It's what I love most about those games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, if my wife didn't pre-order it when I go out there, it's over.
Divorce papers served.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna batch a couple of these together so we can bang through them. Trevstad and Risebread asked, "What's up?"
I said, "Sounds good." Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Trevstad and Risebread asked two kind of complementary questions here. Trev asked, very generally, who are some of your favorite independent online artists? And Risebread said, adding on to that, are there any particular things that gave inspiration for CNH?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with CNH inspiration and then expand out a little bit. A big influence to many things about it. I'd say it's like, for me, what it felt like at the time. I was 14 when I was first drawing them, and I was a very big fan of both Don Hertzfeldt and Jonan Vasquez, and they Jonan Vasquez's Noodle Boy and Don Hertzfeldt's animations. It felt like kind of a mixture of that for me, and so they were really big. A huge line of stand-up comedy. I've just loved stand-up ever since I was maybe 4 years old, and there's a lot of heroes I've had there. Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright, Mitch Hedberg, Bill Hicks, Dave Chappelle, lots of people. And then moving forward, Casey Green was a huge one as well. I feel like everybody knows Casey Green's work, even if they don't quite know him, and just the amount of work that he's done. It's all amazing. In webcomics, again, Perry Bible Fellowship is another huge one that I love. It came out after us, but it's just so good, man. It's just so
Whenever
great.
I hear the name, I think of the Cave Explorer one where the kid asks the dad, or it's like time for school or something. Oh, time for Cave Explorer. It's like, it is the filthiest, most god awful 3-frame comic that I think anybody's ever drawn.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing is Perry Bible Fellowship looks so pretty and has so many different like child children's book illustrations to it that most people don't understand that 9 out of 10 comics are about sex or something along those lines. It doesn't seem on the surface as dirty as it is, which I love. I love that about it.
I have two framed prints that I will show you right now.
Oh, yeah?
From Perry
That'd be great.
Bible Fellowship. Yes. Well, actually, what happened was I ordered my favorite comic from him as a print, and then he just sent me another one for free.
That's awesome.
I guess. I don't know why. It was weird. So I got two.
That's great. Everything about Nicholas Gurwitch is weird. He's he is a cartoon character for sure. Let's see. I'll mention some more inspirations and independent creators that I've grown to love. You mentioned several of them before. Psychic Pebbles, Chris Oni, Mark M with sick animation. Felix Colgrave is an incredible animator, probably my favorite animator who's doing stuff on the internet.
Can I stop you here? I got to pause on this because that's actually the next question. If you can expand, Puff asked, his question is just the name Felix Colgrave, thoughts, opinions on his work, etc. So if you can expand on Felix Colgrave and why you like him, Puff will be thrilled.
Absolutely. Dude, that's amazing. Dude,
Yeah,
good choice
sorry,
too.
Sorry, Matt. I brought in my the other one I have has to do with these like sexy unicorns.
Oh, yeah.
And then this like really ugly donkey shows up with like a carrot like taped to his forehead, pretending to be a unicorn. But I seem to have like drilled that into my wall, so I can't take it out. This is my favorite one though, Perry Bible Fellowship. So I'm going to do my best to describe what this comic is. So essentially, you have this. It looks like a children's illustration, like in a kid's book. And you have these kids, and they see these clouds that have these rainbow swings attached to them. These clouds with faces, these happy clouds. And the clouds with the rainbow swings take the kids away, except for one kid who unfortunately is in a wheelchair. So the wheelchair handicapped kid is really sad as his friends get whisked away by these amazing happy clouds with rainbow swings. But luckily, one of the clouds has like a little handicapped access ramp so that the handicapped kid can also join his friends flying away on these rainbow clouds. The final panel is that the punchline here is this horrendous volcano with a skull face who the kids are falling into the top of the volcano. And the cloud carrying the handicapped kid says, "All gifts are accepted by Aranaktu." Basically, they're just being sacrificed to a volcano. That's the joke.
I love it.
I don't know. Perry Bible Fellowship is a great example. Before we started recording, we were talking about how there are some jokes that I don't understand how people come up with. They're so creative to me that I'm like, I don't know how you did that. Perry Bible Fellowship is a constant stream of jokes that I never could have come up with. And I'm always in awe of jokes like this. Like, I don't know how you put this together. Like rainbow cloud swing magic handicapped kid time ends up in like sacrificial volcano. How do you get there? How do you get there? Chris, do you know how you get there? How did he get there?
I have theories. I think that it's about contrast, right? I think he probably had a little visual in his head about rainbows being flipped over, used as ropes, used as swing and stuff like that, and probably actively tried to make a contrast between how bright and sunshiny and happy it is, and it's very inclusionary, and then it's like inclusionary and happy for bad reasons, and that's my theory. Is it's probably like make it so sunshiny and joyous, and then topple that over.
Right, I love it.
Did we get a quick rundown on Felix Colgrave on what makes him
sorry,
amazing?
no, I totally interrupted that.
You're great, man. No worries. Yeah, Felix Colgrave is an incredible animator. He's also someone who was on Newgrounds back in the day. He has done short films. He does crazy, weird little visuals. It's all very surrealist. it has such a beautiful style to it, and the attention to detail he does with the sound design is really great too. And he's been hired to make music videos as well. One, for example, was for a Nicki Minaj remix, and they're just like, Kevin, you're mentioning, like, how did you get there? How did you come up with that? Felix Colgrave is constantly that. His visuals that he animates and everything are like, they almost involve no words. They're so visually funny and interesting, and the whole thing is just far out. It's very psychedelic and surreal, and it can be creepy, and I just highly recommend checking out all his stuff. He's working on a movie that like a feature length animation that he's been working on for a few years, and that's going to come out soon. If you want a good introduction to his work, I would say check out Double King by Felix Colgrave, and I think that'll be a good way to get a sense of it.
Double King?
Yeah, Double King.
Okay.
You're going to love it if you
I
haven't
think
seen it,
we've already
Kevin.
got that in the chat. I think somebody's about to pop it in. Yeah, there it is already.
Nice. Thank you, chat.
Excellent. So this one starts with a comment. This is from Baseweight, and he wanted you to know that he's been reading your stuff religiously since junior high, and he's always found comfort in CNH. He said hearing that you were raised Mormon gives him hope about his own future. So thank you for your art and your influence on his life. You mentioned growing up in a Mormon household at the very beginning there. Are you currently practicing, or have you left that, or no?
I'm currently practicing
Because
how
that's
to
just-
stay the fuck away from it, mostly.
Okay. So we would classify this as ex-Mormon, yes?
Ex-Mormon. I wasn't officially excommunicated, but I'm not sure they do the letters anymore.
Okay.
No, I grew up in a Mormon family, and my parents were a lot less religious and were definitely kind of more of the black sheep family. And Mormon families are great and everything, but it's can also be very mafia. There can be like a lot of weird rules and stuff. And as growing up, I really hated church too, because it was very long, and it was like 4 hours, and then I would do
That's a while.
what is it called? Inner school afterwards, which is just the younger kids all have to do about another hour-long class, and it's more focused. And that was torture. I don't have a good attention span, so having to sit there and like wanting to draw or do anything on your weekend definitely made me not want to just sit there and fidget with it. But I definitely got an idea when I was young. I saw my family kind of act strange, not because they were strange, but the religion kind of forced them to act strange and be really cliquey and really strange, just weird. And we were neighbors going down the same side of a road in Fort Bridger for, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of a mile. It's just my family all living next to each other.
Okay.
And
That's
so
how mine is
them
pretty much where I live.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I know what that's like, kind of being out in the country, and it's everybody knows that your family is on the hill. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
that hill is the row of houses and in the connecting plots. So yeah,
Right.
that's a really great thing in some ways, and it's very strange in others.
Right. And they are like grouped. It's so similar to mafia, where it's like, oh, that's the Hamblin family. And even if people who don't have the last name Hamblin, you'll know they're the Hamblins, and ours was like the Peterson sect or whatever you want to call it. But I definitely, I had fun pushing the buttons with religion and stuff like that, and I didn't find anything I needed from religion. So aside from being able to make light of it and kind of joke about it, it had a lot to do with my, I guess, I was a knuckle dragon skateboarder guy, so I wanted to, I wanted to take the piss out of religions. And the same goes for Rob and Dave. Like, Dave went to Catholic school, and he's not a very Catholic guy, I'll tell you that. And same with Rob, growing up in Texas, and he went to a religious private school as well and stuff like that. And so we all have had our different experiences with different religions, and just kind of, it comes into our work a lot, where we like to play with it as a theme or make fun of it. And I think it's useful. I'm glad that can I say I indoctrinated? What was the username?
Baseweight.
base weight. We dedoctrinated base weight, maybe, if that's the influence we had.
His real question is, what would you tell your former Mormon self about how to approach the future?
I would tell my former...
Which is a tough one. I mean, that's a big one, isn't it?
Right. Well, I would find myself when I was 8, and I would... there was a little religious book I had to read, and I would tell him, hey, put it down, don't worry about it. I know you really want the banana split they're going to give you, but it's going to come with baptism and a whole lot of people knowing where you live through like the Mormon networks of information and stuff like that. Because they really rope kids in with, at least from my experience, was, hey, do you want to read this, like, I don't know, 16-page book? And then we can go out and get banana splits? I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, let's go get banana splits. That sounds great. 16 pages. I'm 8. I have such a high reading level. 16 pages is nothing. And so I read it and I'm like, done. Banana split time. And, next thing I know, we're all getting dressed up and going to the church, and I'm being dunked in water. And then we all go get banana splits. I'm like, oh, there's the catch. So I would stop myself from maybe not seeing through that, since that was kind of a pretty sneaky thing for a family to do, even though I didn't know the gravity of it or anything.
We actually failed to secure a sponsor for this episode because we didn't try. So given that on the Here's an Idea podcast, the creators and writers of Cyanide and Happiness have 1 hour to pitch, write, and record a new original script for an animated short or face dire consequences. The task that we're about to set forth should be very, very easy. You have 0 seconds to come up with a sponsor for this episode.
Done. 0 seconds?
Yes. We need a sponsor invented on the spot.
Fall season is blowing in. So does the cold weather. So does the cold tips of your ears. Nobody going back. Are you tired of a cold head, cold temple, cold face, cold dome getting in the way of your good day, of your warm feelings and memories? Have you tried the brand new, pure yellow and blue Napa beanie? If you haven't, don't be the last person on your block to try it. I guess end scene. Not my best work.
I can say they do have a 35-year warranty. I can attest
to
the quality of that beanie.
Yeah, come in.
Yeah, use code NAPA for 69% off.
When you started talking about the tips of ears, I thought it was going to be something that was like a tiny miniature hat just for the tops of each ear.
Oh, that's brilliant. See, there you go. Even better sponsor. Just what do they call the top part of the ear again? I forget.
I don't know.
I don't know. Is there a
earworm
medical
is
term?
already taken, right? So
right.
Ear socks.
Ear socks.
Ear socks is good. Yeah.
Get yourself a pair of Create Unknown ear socks.
The ear gang is already rising up in the chat. We can machine gun a couple here, and then we'll be out the door. What inspired Depressing Week, and how much do you love writing that stuff?
Depressing Week came from an idea that Dave did that he wasn't quite sure of. Rob did. Rob did a comic about a kid who I believe his mom tells him that he's too short, or he's in a wheelchair, my bad. And his mom tells him that he'll never be able to play basketball. And then it cuts later to him at the doctor. And the doctor's telling the mom, I'm sorry, he died of broken dreams. And Rob was asking us, he's like, is this funny or is this just sad? And Dave was like, it's sad and we should do a week of them. And then it became this practice of writing in the completely opposite direction, where we are really trying to find things that we find sad and depict them, and we spend time to try to bum each other out. And as rough as the writing process is, I absolutely love it.
Well, Depressing Week and all the other weeks are relevant to Zack Attack 69's question. Nice. He says that he sees Cyanide and Happiness comics reposted everywhere on websites, apps. Yeah, and God, I don't remember where I first saw it, but it probably wasn't a legitimate place.
Right.
So,
It's all legitimate.
how do you try to prevent that kind of content theft, and does it affect the way you do things at all, or the process?
We have very strong views when it comes to that, and it's kind of helped us, honestly, from the get-go. We were, when the internet was a little older, it was 2006, and there's a big thing that webcomics didn't like, which was hyperlinking. If you ever remember trying to post an image somewhere and it just comes up as a broken image hosted up by Angel Fire or whatever, that's people preventing hyperlinking. And we were one of the first, if not the first comic to say, allow hyperlinking, share it wherever, post it wherever you want. We don't care. Please post it. And I think that definitely helped us along the way. We've even had, there's a point where a television station in New Zealand stole our comics and put them up like panel for panel, like the comics of all things. We had animations, but they showed panel for panel, just some of our comics on TV. And so we got a hold of them, not, oh, you sons of bitches, not take it down or anything. We said, no, do it again. But this time put our name up there, put our contact stuff up there. And that's kind of how we treat it. Like Matt and Trey Parker, they like collecting all the knockoff merchandise of their stuff. We're kind of the same way. We don't take people down. If people are trying to steal stuff, we just say, hey, put it up again and do it right. Because what we want to do is entertain people. We want people to see it.
Sure. No, that seems to be a successful attitude toward building something that it's surprising that more people don't do that.
Right.
And Zach follows up just now in the chat saying one of the greatest weapons against content theft of your stuff is its style.
Right. We didn't invent circles and squares, and there's a lot of web comics that have come up from being inspired by us. But the thing is, if they're not trying to steal our logo and make it appear that we made something we didn't, that's just a different thing entirely. If someone's taking our stuff and putting it up on a meme page and whatnot, no, that's fine. That's what we consider successful. People emulating the style, we also read comics and we also want to laugh. So if they're making something that's stylistically similar, but it's original in their own writing and their own take on it, then, we endorse that. We want to laugh at comics too.
That's cool. We've got a short one and another one. And now that I realize how many times you sat through 4 hours in the church, I mean, this is nothing. That means we have 2 more hours to go.
No, this is great. I love this church. No banana splits, no baptisms. I guess I should ask up front.
The Church of the Unknown. The Church of the Unknown would be a pretty beautiful, solid name.
Isn't
that nice?
That's great. There's so many cults out here in Colorado that I think if you just put Church of the Unknown up on a flyer, you'd have people pouring in.
That's our next move.
Oh, I like this. Yeah. This has legs. This has legs. So Trev asked, can you think of any good lost webcomic artists? Do any pop into your head?
That are now no longer active, I imagine.
Yeah, I think that have been forgotten in a way, or
right.
Are now memories.
Yeah, absolutely. White Ninja is a really good one. That's no longer going. Red Meat was another really great one back in the day.
Oh, God, I loved Red Meat.
Right?
In the 90s, sorry to jump on you with this, but I remember Kevin and I went to the same high school, so he knows the room I'm talking about. The physics room had computers in the back, and that was kind of a de facto computer lab where you really could goof around as opposed to, really properly using the computers.
Right.
And every single day I would check Red Meat.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was just incredible. And I remember that now is 21 years ago.
Right.
Sitting there laughing at the kid being forced to live under the stairs because his parents wouldn't buy him leg braces or something. But yeah, it
was so brutal to that kid.
So White Ninja, you said Red Meat. Were there any others?
Oh, that's a great question. White Ninja, Red Meat. our Joel, who now writes and voice acts with us, Joel Watson, he did one called Hijinks Ensue that was really good. There's so many that have gone away, and I don't want to say they're lost if they're on a hiatus or whatever. But
Right.
one that is currently on a hiatus, but it's an incredible one, is called Death Bulge. And our buddy Dan Martin makes that one, and he's working on a video game right now, music-based RPG, and it looks sweet. But Death Bulge is definitely an excellent one to check out. But yeah, great question. I kind of want to think on that more.
Chris, do you know Leisure Town?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
Leisure Town.
I was just racking my brain for it, and for some reason I couldn't remember the name of the webcomic, but I remembered the artist's name, which was Tristan Farnon. After we get finished up here, you have to look at Leisure Town. It was a comic strip where there were photos of these like kids' toys, like little animals, and extremely offensive.
Oh yeah,
and
yes. Send me a good place to start. I'm seeing the art style right now, and it's wild. It's great. I've
never seen anything like it since. I never saw, and I even remember thinking back in like 2001. How long it must have taken to make these, because especially back then when the tools that you had to create even just like photoshopping things were garbage in like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Oh, absolutely. Like even a drawing tablet was incredibly hard to get a hold of.
Yeah. And sucked. Like even when you did.
It's like this big, and they would only control like just a small little square on your screen.
Yeah. I will do my best to find my favorite Leisure Town comic, and I will share it with you, and you will not be allowed to let anybody know that I did
that. Absolutely. There's a few I know like that too.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Cat Boyo has really a question that it kind of flows from the intro that we did. He said, did you ever expect years ago that simple drawings would lead to a really well-known series that has been part of the backbone of the internet for so long now, with animations and comic strips that are always being recommended on Facebook, on YouTube, used to be on Vine, now it's on Instagram and TikTok. Mm-hmm. Does it blow your mind to see the vast reach of your work at this point?
Absolutely. It's surreal every day, and has been surreal since the get-go. I remember like what stood out to me like heavily was sitting in a town in Wyoming of 150 people and working on these things, these comics and whatnot, by myself for years, and then with collaborating with Rob and Dave, and just doing that for a little while. And I never saw the effects. I never, you'd see a number on how many people are reading it, and maybe you'd find it in the wild on the internet or on a MySpace page or whatever at the time. But going to Comic-Con and seeing that we had just a 2-hour signing, and the amount of people that were willing to show up for that, and like meeting people in person who actually share the sense of humor or enjoy it, that really put a lot of things into perspective, where it felt like, you could actually feel like you're kind of helping contribute to something in for people. You're contributing to the human race. I don't know, human condition. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but that really opened our eyes. It's surreal all the time. It's surreal when it's just surreal when anybody like tells us, I've been reading since 2008 or what have you. It's incredible. It's just, it never stops being puzzling and mind blowing. The fact that, that this year, if someone's, this year CNH will be old enough to drive. And the fact that there's people still like feverishly supporting it is just, it's fucking awesome. It's incredible. Like I'll never get to a point where I don't just kind of get a little shocked in the headlights of it.
Well, we want to ask one more question that will elevate the discourse and contribute positively to the human race. Okay. And it's something that we ask all of our guests, and then we'll get you out of here. No. Importantly, not just the human race, but, we're the only ones here for now until you answer this question. And that is, what is your fursona?
My fursona is a sea urchin. It's sea urchin. Let's see what the name is. Ursula, and goes to high school like every other fursona. Has a dyed bouffant and very sexy, but also you can't get close to it. It's a bad boy sea urchin. Would they let me in? Would they let me into the YIF parties if I was a spineless sea creature?
Yeah, you're in.
There's
You're welcome.
there's actually what is it called? There's a legitimate paradox involving exactly that concept, and it's called the hedgehog something. About getting close to people and loving them, right? And that's the hedgehog dilemma. That's right. Despite goodwill, human intimacy cannot occur without substantial mutual harm. But my question is, if you're in high school, Ursula, how do you participate properly in gym class?
Oh, a gym class?
You sound like a danger. Yeah, you sound like a danger to everybody around you as a sea urchin. How do you participate in PE?
Usually, I'd say Ursula, my best way is to skip it and smoke a cigarette behind the dumpster. And but if I can't get out of that, then time to break that bad boy exterior and just try to convince my mom to write a sick note. Say I can't because I got like a IBS or something.
The image of Ursula. The image of Ursula smoking a cigarette made me think, for some reason, of a clam smoking a cigarette, which is an awesome image.
It really is. Can that be my album cover? That's incredible.
A clam smoking a cigarette is great.
Yeah, it really is.
You can have that one for free. Kris, thank you so much for joining us. This was awesome.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, man. Great conversations, and I appreciate the chat and all their questions as well.
Yes. Huge thank you to the chat, to all of our patrons who join us for our live recordings here. If you want to do that in the future, you just have to go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown and become one of us. Google gobble, one of us, and you can hang out with us for all of these recordings. And to check out Kris Wilson, Cyanide, and happiness stuff, go anywhere, because it runs the gamut. Yeah, it will come to you. You can't avoid it, whether it's been ripped off and freebooted and reposted somewhere, or you're downloading it on your Nintendo Switch. It's going to be in front of your eyeballs, and you're going to love it. All right. Thanks, Kris. Thanks, chat.
Hey,
talk soon. See you, Space Cowboys.